They said humanity would never be heard, that our voices were too small, our history too violent, our ideas too fragile to stand in the halls of the Galactic Council. But the day we finally spoke, every other voice in the galaxy fell silent. Before we dive into this story, if you enjoy these journeys, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Now, let me tell you what happened the day humans finally spoke in the Chamber of Worlds. The Galactic Council was old. Older than nations, older than empires, older than most suns. It was not a parliament in the human sense, nor a government in the traditional way. It was a theater of survival, where species clawed for influence through rhetoric instead of war. At its core was the Hall of Concordance, a chamber carved from a planetoid adrift between stars. Its walls were alive with constellations, flickering holographic memories of civilizations long past. Every empire that had ever risen to join the council had spoken there, and everyone that had fallen left only fading echoes in the ceiling's shifting tapestry. By the time humans arrived, we were barely noticed. The great powers laughed at us, the smaller ones feared us, and most dismissed us as noisy newcomers clinging to a fragile planet that had not yet even colonized its own solar system properly. The council chamber was vast. Each species spoke through voice, light, chemical trails, or telepathic projection. The room was always a storm of arguments, overlapping speeches, deals struck mid-sentence, threats delivered under veils of flowery language. No one ever truly listened. That was the way of things. But then came the moment when humanity's turn arrived. The delegation from Earth had been patient. We were given a seat at the outer rim of the chamber, where lesser powers sat like children at the edge of a feast. For months, our diplomats sat quietly, speaking little, watching much. The council had debated trade, war, famine, technology, even the extinction of entire species. And through it all, humans listened. They mistook our silence for weakness. What they didn't understand was that silence is how humans sharpen their blades. The first time our delegates stood, it was almost unnoticed. A ripple of translation nodes flickered, voices softened only for a moment, and then surged again. No one paid attention. The second time, there was a pause. A few turned to look at the small biped wrapped in fabric instead of armor. Unarmored skin instead of scales, eyes steady where most would bow. The words spoken were brief, a plea for time, for recognition, for the right to contribute. The council returned to its chaos as though brushing aside a leaf caught in the wind. And then came the third time. The chamber had been consumed by argument that day. A war had broken out in the spiral arm, one so vast entire star systems burned. Each species sought to claim neutrality, advantage, or vengeance. The voices of 1,000 civilizations roared at once, and then the human rose. At first no one stopped, but then the words came, translated into 1,000 tongues, resonating across the walls like a stone dropped into an ocean. Enough! It was not shouted. It was spoken, firm, measured. But in that single word, something shifted. A silence spread outward like fire racing across dry grass. Voices faltered, light displays flickered and dimmed. Chemical trails ceased, minds withdrew. For the first time in living memory, the council chamber fell silent. The humans spoke of history, of our world, of rivers dyed red with war, and fields rebuilt into bread, of nations once divided learning to form coalitions, imperfect but enduring, of our species clawing its way from caves to stars, never by accident, never without blood, but always forward. They spoke of listening, how humanity had sat at the edge of the chamber for months, studying, absorbing, hearing what others had dismissed, how we had seen every species speak only to be ignored, how nothing was ever decided because no one ever truly heard the other. Civilization, the human said, is not built on the loudest voice. It is built on the moment someone chooses to listen. The chamber held its silence like a breath. No interruptions, no distractions. The stars embedded in the ceiling seemed to flicker as if leaning closer. The human did not flatter, did not threaten, did not beg. They simply told a story, not of Earth alone, but of what it means to be human, of the power of words carried not for dominance, but for truth. When they finished, there was nothing. No applause, no rebuttal, no laughter, only silence. The kind of silence that comes not from emptiness but from recognition. In that silence, the galaxy realized it had heard something rare, not politics, not performance, but truth. The silence lasted one heartbeat, then another, and the galaxy never forgot it. From that day forward, humanity's seat was no longer at the edge. Ambassadors sought us out. Old powers who had dismissed us began to weigh their words more carefully. And the council chamber itself was changed. For though it would return to noise, the memory of that silence lingered. A silence earned not through fear, but through words that reached across species and stars. We did not conquer the galaxy that day. We did something far more dangerous. We made it listen, and that was the day humanity spoke, and the galaxy went silent. If you're still here at the end of this story, I want to thank you for listening, because listening is the heart of what we just talked about. If you enjoyed this journey, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from tonight. Until next time, keep looking at the stars because one day they might be listening back.